Hello, my name is Nicholas Ogden, and this is my ML311 presentation assignment on research methods. In this video, I will discuss in detail my chosen research method for this assignment. Research methods. Before I begin, when choosing a research method, it is easy to think one research approach is superior to another. This is not the idea. They are all better at different things. It also depends entirely on the research being undertaken. Sometimes research methods can be combined. This is known as mixed methods. For example, a mixture of quantitative and qualitative research and data is beneficial as it adds more credibility to findings. My chosen research method is face-to-face interviews. Rowley defines this method as verbal exchanges in which one person, the interviewer, attempts to acquire information from and gain an understanding of another person, the interviewee. From face-to-face interviews, information can be acquired from interviewees sharing their attitudes, beliefs, behaviours, or experiences. Qualitative data. Interviews are the most common form of strategy used for collecting qualitative data. Qualitative data from interviews can generate an emerging understanding. Strategies such as the editing approach can be implemented to interpret in-depth interviews as text segments can be reviewed and identified. It is also possible to extract quantitative data from structured face-to-face interviews by including closed questions. This is useful to incorporate as both sets of data helps to create a comprehensive study. Here I'm going to talk about interview conceptions. This is looking at the interviewer's behaviour and role. For positive results, this is crucial that the interviewer gets this right, as each candidate will respond differently to different conceptions. Therefore, it is the interviewer's responsibility to think about which conception may be appropriate for each interviewee. Background research may be needed. It is important to note that all interviewers need to be good listeners. Ralston offers 3 different research interview conceptions. These are neo-positivist, romantic, and constructionist. Looking at neo-positivist, this is where a skilled and neutral interviewer gets quality and valid data and findings by asking great questions that minimize bias or research influences. Romantic. Here, the interviewer creates rapport with the interviewee. This leads to intimate and friendly conversation. The interviewer is active in the discussion and is able to get the answers and interpretations of the participant. Constructionist. The interviewer constructs data in unstructured interviews. Designing the questions and format. This is very important. During this planning process, the research topic must be put into high consideration, as well as the interviewees and audience. From this, it must be decided what is best appropriate. Questions should be asked that are likely to yield as much information as possible. Perhaps it would be best practice to start with some easier questions to ease the interviewee in, and then proceed to more difficult or sensitive topics. Test first. It is useful to pilot the interview to see if it works. Ethical considerations should be undertaken for things like anonymity and confidentiality. A form can be designed for participants to sign prior to interview as a form of reassurance. For more group-orientated topic discussing, perhaps a focus group would be more appropriate. A focus group could be conducted as a follow-up to interviews to extend any ideas. I will now focus on the interview process with good practice. Maintaining motivation and data quality is key here. As previously mentioned, reactions are never the same. Remember, interviewees will always react differently to the questions and the interviewer. Remove any distractions. Remove any distractions that may hinder the interview. Allow plenty of time. Give interviewees time to think and answer. Make sure they do not feel rushed in any way. Wording of questions can be key. According to Sudman and Bradburn, it is possible to remove the threat of participants being unable to recall past behaviour with wording questions like, "Do you happen to know?" or "Can you recall offhand?" Methodological considerations. To extract both qualitative and quantitative data, start with closed and end with open questions. Rewording questions for quantitative data by including an "I don't know" as an answer category is a clever method for acquiring quantitative data. Here I'll examine some of the technical issues that can be deduced from face-to-face interviews. It is useful to be aware of these. 1. Processes for recording interview data. The most common way to record interviews are with tape recorders. The key issues that derive from these are background noises, weak batteries, and the placement of the tape recorder. It can make some interviews unrelaxed. Being aware of these recording issues can prevent some difficult situations. 2. Transcribing the data. Transcribing data after interviews can be challenging, as interpretations of words, phrases, and pauses can be misinterpreted, therefore changing the meaning. To resolve this issue, interviewers should make notes of any connotations that may have been meant from the interviewee. 3. Using software programs. Remember, software programs do not analyze data. Face-to-face interview limitations and strengths. This table, created by Sekaran, highlights some key advantages and disadvantages of face-to-face interviews. Advantages include the ability to clarify the questions, clear any doubts, and add any new questions if needed. With face-to-face interviews, visual aids can also be used to clarify points. Disadvantages include interviewers needing to have been trained to meet requirements, and the interviewer can be liable to be biased. Here I'll mention a limitation that is frequently associated with face-to-face interviews. Sekaran in the previous slide mentioned interviewer bias. However, there is also the important issue of interviewee bias. It is possible for the interviewer to overcome or avoid this by the appropriateness of their appearance at the interview, their approach to questions, their preparation, and the level of information supplied to the interviewee. To conclude, face-to-face interviews provide unique opportunities. With this method, you can present yourself within your own design structure, you can amplify the meaning of any items, and explain any intentions behind the questions. It is far easier to avoid being misconstrued than in other qualitative research methods, such as questionnaires. Face-to-face interviews can also be problematic. As Hagyard suggests, the researcher must ensure that the participant says what they mean and means what they say, and that the researcher reports the view of the participant without bias. Face-to-face interviews are an excellent qualitative method approach. This is an accomplished qualitative method approach, providing it is appropriate for the research topic. However, to succeed, planning and testing is needed. Here are my references. Thank you for listening.